So now the wall is done, and it's time to do this bit here. I'm not quite sure what you call it, chimney case. I think I've seen the word over mantle. I really don't know. Anyway, there's a few things that I need to do before I can stone clad it. The idea is to have the TV up here, this wooden mantle to sit here, and also to have a power point or a power socket behind the TV, and maybe even a sort of a cable conduit that will lead HDMI wire, potentially, or HDMI cables off to the side where the shower's going to be. All of that stuff needs to be done before the cladding goes on, so that I don't have to drill through the natural stone, but can rather clad around these fixtures. Another thing I need to do before the cladding goes on, or so that the cladding can go on in the first place, is the paint has to come off, because I don't want the cladding adhesive to be sitting or to bond with the paint. I want it to bond with the plaster that's underneath the paint. So it has to come off, and then to also increase the, I guess, the traction, for want of a better word, I need to score the plaster with kind of, I guess, an intersecting cut pattern. Just something for the cladding adhesive to grip onto. I may also have to prime this, possibly with slurry. I don't know yet. What I do know is the paint needs to come off first. I'm going to do that now. This took a good deal longer than I thought it would, until I swapped out the sanding disc for a 40 grit one. The coarsest I have, which helps immensely with stripping the paint off the wall. Also, it roughens the plaster up a little bit, which should help with adhesion later. And the other thing that's probably important when doing this is to dial the speed of the sender way down, because otherwise I think it heats the paint up too much, and then it just starts glowing together on the disc, which keeps the disc away from the wall and subsequently keeps it from sanding the paint off. So low speed, low grit, and that's it. So now that the sanding is done, because I work with 40 grit sandpaper, which is nice and rough, I need to score the surface. I could do this randomly, I'm not a great fan of that. So what I'm going to use is the speed square. Just going to do a reference line here. I'm going to do the same on the other side. At a 45 degree angle to this edge here, or corner. Because that then will give me a nice 90 degree intersecting pattern of scored lines that will provide a good base for the cladding adhesive. So that's the scored wall. Hopefully that'll give me a little bit more adhesion, especially after this is all been primed. But before I'll continue with the primer, because that's a non-dusty activity, so I can leave that for later. My priority is to get the dusty stuff out of the way, because I have 2 more days until the couch gets delivered. And there are 4 things that need to be installed here. One is the mantle, which I'm going to leave for another time. That leaves 3 other fixtures that I need to put in. One is for the TV mount itself. That mount is some sort of like a butterfly mount, I think, that sits at the back of it. And that's going to clip into a bracket, and that bracket is going to be bolted into the blockwork behind this plasterboard here. Then I'll need a power socket to supply at least the TV and maybe an Apple TV with power without any of the wires or cables or cords sticking out below or to the sides. I don't want any of that stuff. Third is going to be cable conduit for additional HDMI cables, so that if, let's say, another Xbox or PlayStation or whatever appliance were to make its way in here, there's a HDMI conduit that will run or allow me to run that HDMI cable out of sight. So basically there should be a clean look, nothing but natural stone, the mantle and the TV. So, and those cuts and those drills, they need to be made now. So here it is. That is the TV I'm going to use. It's pretty flat. So diving all the way in the back here, this is a mounting hole. And another one down there. The power comes out on the other side. And this is where the HDMI cables, etc. connect to. There's this flap here that comes away. And that'll give me about, I think, 4 HDMI ports. So I don't need to go far. Just have to take a measurement how far from, let's say, the top edge, and then I'll know where to start drilling. 121 centimeters from the ceiling. So 121, the TV is 83.5 centimeters tall. 121 minus 83.5 is 37.5 centimeters that I have as margin. Now I need to divide that between the bottom and the top of the TV. I think what I'm going to go with is 20 centimeters from the top and 17.5 from where the mantle is going to be. Now let's see where that bracket needs to go. For the HDMI cable conduit, I measured that sits 60 centimeters down from the top edge of the TV and about 15 centimeters in from the sides. And as a margin I added about 7.5 more centimeters. So that drill hole will have to start here and then go in at an angle to come out on this side of it. For my power socket, I probably want that sitting somewhere here. I'd say no particular reason why. I have cut the bottom 2 rows to size and just dry fit them to see how they will slot in, and I would say quite well. And to make up for the difference in height between the towers and the hearth, I've simply put this wood here that props up the panels along the side of the chimney stack. So now that I have that done, I'm not going to cut anymore. I'm just going to mix some mortar, glue these in place first, let it cure, let it dry, and then I'll build on top of that. I've pulled the cladding up to here, where the mantle is going to sit, and for me to be able to continue with the stonework, I have to sort the mantle out first. Well, here's the hunk of oak. As can be expected, this is wood after all. It's a bit cupped, and it's also a bit twisted, meaning it won't lay flat. But of course the twist is running from this end to the other, so once I cut it to size, that should even out a little bit because the length is reduced. The cupping, not much I can do about that. I don't have a planer thicknesser, and I'm not going to plane it flat. It's just going to go on au nature, as it were. What I am going to do is the cut edge here at the very last step. I'll be sanding that smooth. I'll be giving everything else a really fine grit sanding afterwards, and we'll then oil it with probably Danish oil. But those are the last steps. For now, just going to start with cutting it to length. Now as the dust settles, and this is the bit that was cut off, there is a crack here and further cracking there. I mean, some of it is expected, but at least the most egregious end is removed, so hopefully this end here will fare better. Still a nice lump of oak that I have now left to, I don't know, perhaps do some project work with. Right, next I have to find the middle of this bit. So I cut this to 144.6, or rather 144.4 as it were. So this should be, where's my pencil? $72.2. That's my center line. It's just shy of 9 centimeters, about 8.8 or thereabouts. So 4.4 is going to be, let's say 4.5. Why not? There. So that's dead center. Why do I need this? I need dead center so that the bracket goes on right. Now, this is the bracket that's going to sit on the wall, fixed with concrete screws. And then this will bolt into the back. This thing is similar to how a floating shelf works, with these bits here. So there's these massive screws, I think they're like 8 millimeters thick. I'm going to go in here from the back, and this thing screws on like so. I have 2 more of these, and similar to a floating bookshelf, they will then need to slot into the back of the mantelpiece here. Now I measure these bits, they're 15.5 millimeters, and I only have a 60 millimeter spade, this one here, so that'll have to do. I guess the tricky bit is going to be getting the orientation reasonably perpendicular, or in a 90-degree angle, to the back of my workpiece. That's even a little too deep. No, it shouldn't matter, because that's just going to pull in against there. Now this slides in rather easily, and either that's good and I want that, or on final installation I'm going to have to use a little bit of sealant, or I don't know, contact adhesive or something, to sort of just rub around this bolt here before I then push that in there. But we shall see. For now, That is a very nice hole. Now, I'm going to put screws in all of these for maximum stability, but first I want to do a quick fit test to make sure that the mantle has enough room, especially to the row down here, because up here I can still adjust, but this one here is important. I think I won't need the contact cement after all. This is a pretty tight fit. I've also sanded the mantle. I don't know what it was treated with, but it's nice to have a clean slate. I'm going to sand this a bit more. So far this has only been 320 grit. I think I'm going to dampen it slightly and then sand it again with 400, and then I'll treat it with, I don't know, probably Danish oil. Feels very nice and smooth there. I screwed in these two angle brackets here, aluminium or steel, whatever they are, just to be able to then rest the next row of Z panels on, because I'm going to do this row here before I start filling this gap in, just so that the full row that's going here is supported. That's what the bracket's for. Classic rookie mistake. Now I've made those screw holes way too deep. They're basically now too deep or deeper than the screws are long, so in order for them to pull this bit in, which then compresses these halves out, which keeps the anchor in the wall, these screws aren't long enough to be sitting out here like that, potentially having to allow spaces, because of course there's an uneven surface, and to compress or expand the anchor and the back. Probably need screws that are at least, yeah, these are 80 millimeters. I probably need at least 120, if not 160. Classic rookie mistake, drilling the damn holes too deep. Now that's the damn fireplace. All of the big rows are done, except for the 3 bits that I need to fill in, which are here at the very bottom, where I have about 2 inches of a gap between the tiles and the first row of stones. And here looks to be about, I want to say 10 centimeters, which is about half of the height of any of the regular rows. That's going to be interesting. And then up here, probably the same, although I'd say this seems more like 12 centimeters. So this is going to take a fair bit of wiggling and jigsaw puzzling. But yeah, that's what I have to do now. And at the same time, I can also start moving all this stuff out of here and turn this into its living room shape. So, in order for me to get that last half row in there, that coving needs to be cut back to about there. I have a bit left over, just there, and it'll be just enough to to make a nice little strip next to the stonework in there. And on the other side. That's going to be a bit of dusty multi-tool work. And I've started jigsawing up around here, but I figure once I've cut a full row up here to about half, or actually a bit more than half, I should have enough leftover pieces to fill in this bit here. So I'm going to continue up here for now. And finally, getting to oil the mantle with the aforementioned Danish oil. The TV is now in place and working, but those pesky wall niches remain unfinished. I've ordered 2 large bookcases to go in them, but they'll take months to arrive and will require some further finessing to fit around the external air intake for the stove on the right and the floor heating manifold on the left. The furnishing isn't complete yet either. This room will definitely need a coffee table or 2, but maybe the idea of what it is supposed to look like is becoming a bit clearer now.